What is going on, everybody? I hope everybody's having a great Saturday evening wherever you are in the country. It's a little bit of a special version of the Monday show. Me and Al with special guest Mike Finn. We're here to talk about the 49ers and the Dolphins, but really we're here to talk about what's coming in about 3 weeks, which is the off season. We have a litany of topics we could go at. Do a little bit of a preview of what we think we want to see with the next 3 weeks, whether it be position groups or certain players. And we'll get to all that for the next hour or so. But before we do that, I just want to welcome Mike to the show.
Hey, thank you, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for being on. So usually on Mondays, we're here to react to the game, but we're doing a little bit of a preview, if you want to call it. I'm going to start with Mike. First of all, let the audience know what you told me about, how long you've been a fan and, how you kind of go about, because me and you, like I said, on Twitter, me, you and Al kind of are all on the same wavelength as far as how we feel about the Niners. When it comes to quarterback, when it comes to coaching, when it comes to organizational things, we're kind of all on the same wavelength. And maybe that's boring to some people, but I like to have smart and educated conversations with people, but let people know who you are.
Well, like you said, my name is Mike Finn. I've been on Twitter almost since it started. My handle used to be at Ice Cream Judas, and a couple of my accounts got deactivated for razzing some opposing teams fans. So, but I've been a fan since the late '80s. I've been alive for all 5 Niners Super Bowls. Yes, I understand it. It's been since I was 14 that we've won one, and I am almost 45. So it's been 3 decades, and I hope to see one really, really soon. But yeah, that's I've been on Twitter for almost the entire time it's existed, and this season hasn't been the best. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell as far as being a Niner fan.
It's funny because like I've been on Twitter since 2013, but I didn't really start talking Niners on Twitter till probably the 2017 season. Got into it a little bit with some players during the not the Tom Sula era, but the whoever came after him. I forget. It's meaningless. Who cares who the coach was?
The Tom Sula error.
Yeah, and I was a very, very angry fan who would tweet at players. Then I went through this whole metamorphosis when I got the YouTube channel and try to act like I was some sort of professional or someone who knows more than everybody else. This season has me reverting back to my old ways. I'm not as angry towards players, but I have a lot more tweets that are as like unsavory and maybe people don't agree with. But this season's it's done it to all of us. It's done it to Mike. It's done it to Al. I watch you guys tweet all the time. Like I said, we kind of agree. There's this overarching theme that has been going on Twitter where, Kyle Shanahan is the root to all. He is the evil. He is the Antichrist. We need to get rid of him. He's the worst coach.
Mike might say he's the Judas, like his old handle.
Right. And that Brock Purdy needs to be thrown to the wayside, and we need to go find ourselves an elite quarterback. I mean, it's all just in this little ball that everybody just kind of likes to throw around. But Al, I'll start with you. Like, how are you when you think about like the Brock Purdy situation going into the offseason? We can start with the contract and everything. Like, what do you make of all the conversation where people have all these different ideas or different takes on what he should be paid? And, everybody seems to have an opinion on it. People want to compare him to Tua and other quarterbacks, all that other stuff. But like, when it comes to the 49ers, like we've talked about, elite quarterbacks don't grow on trees. And when you have one, you have to you have to do what you have to do to, to wrap them up. And the market is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I mean, going into the off season, what are your thoughts kind of on the whole Brock Purdy situation? And what do you think of some of the stuff that people say as far as the anti-Purdy crowd.
Well, I think the scariest thing that's going to happen is if it's true about Kirk Cousins being released by the Falcons, and if that happens immediately when the season ends, well, that's going to give a lot of the anti-Purdy people a lot of stuff to talk about for at least the next 2 months, 2.5 months until, the next league year starts officially. I think that's the scariest thing for what the discourse is going to be. And you guys know, if we're all of like similar mind to it, like the market's the market. Anybody out there saying that, Brock should be given a Baker Mayfield deal or a Daniel Jones deal, or some other crazy people are, oh, he's not worth $25 million. And some of the discourses, well, the Niners got all the leverage. Let him just play out on his 4th year. I think they might need to look up in a dictionary what the word leverage means, because Brock's got the leverage. And if Bosa didn't play on his last year, and Debo and Ayuk, there's no way Brock or his agent are going to let him do that. And for everybody that wants to stick their hands into Brock's wallet or his money bin or whatever he's going to have soon, maybe he gets one like Scrooge McDuck from DuckTales. What would, Joe and Jane Schmo, what would you do if you were in Brock's situation? Would you play on your 4th year option? Would you take less than what the market dictates? It's so easy to say stuff, and it's so easy to say nonsensical stuff on Twitter just to drum up engagement. I've been saying for, I don't know what a while is, maybe it's a couple months, like the floor is $50 million a year. And no matter what the guarantees are, the floor is 50, right? He shouldn't get more than Dak. He shouldn't, and Dak shouldn't be paid what he's getting paid. I think it's just a little ridiculous. And you can see the Cowboys are now, they're a bad team with an above average quarterback that's making a whole lot of money, but he's in, he's not elite. And anybody that's arguing that he is elite, I think you're wrong, but if he's not top 6, he's 7 to 12, and there's nothing wrong with that. So if he's in the class of Tua and Lawrence and Love and Goff, even though Goff's having a really good year, and Hurts, then he should get paid what those guys are going to get paid. It's really I hate to say people's opinions are wrong, because there's a lot of people out there, or too many people out there, that have the opinion that the earth is flat. Sorry, dude and dudettes, you're wrong. But if anyone says, well, I don't think the Niners should give Purdy 50, they should give him 35, 40, 25 million when he gets 50 plus, y'all are wrong. Like, it's just, it's going to happen. So everybody just start coping now. And it's the price of doing business in the most important position in sports. It's pretty, my wife's a math teacher, and this is pretty easy math to me. It's just a matter of where in the 50s he's going to come.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Brock should play on his last year. None of the other guys did, so people expecting him to do that are delusional. And I think, to be perfectly honest, I get what you're saying about the $50 million area. But the way the Niners do contracts is not like most teams or any other team. Prague waves is one, man, and he makes everything team friendly. He makes everything has a trap door. Everything has, by the 3rd year, when that money gets really funny and that money gets a little crazy, they tend to renegotiate that number. I think Brock falls in, just for the sake of arguing, somewhere between 40 and 45. Okay. What do you guys call it? AAV? I don't really believe in that, because it's never 45 every year. If you look at any of these contracts that have come out, even these quarterbacks on other teams, it's not, take the number of years divided by the total money, and that's how much money you get paid every year. So I think it'll be very front loaded. I think he'll get a gigantic signing bonus, somewhere maybe in the $40 million range, maybe higher. I'm not sure. But I don't even believe in the first year of the deal, which will be not this coming up season, but the next season, that it will be it will even, his cap hit will be $10 or $15 million. I don't think it'll get to that 40, 45, $50 million range until year 3. And the way that the Niners do business is, once it gets to that, we sit at the table again and renegotiate that number. I mean, we did it with Eric Armstead several times. We've done it with George Kittle several times. Juice just did it. I mean, Debo's done it at what, once, maybe twice. So this is not to me, fans are, oh, well, he might get 60. It honestly, whatever number that you're saying is going to be the average, that is not the number that he's going to be paid every year. He's going to get an enormous amount of money up front because that's how the Niners do it. Okay, they pay you for services rendered, and then they make sure that they have a trap door just in case you get hurt. What if he gets hurt again? You know what I mean? And then you're going to hear the names like Kirk Cousins and all these other guys who are potential backups. That's another story and another topic we can talk about. But to wrap up the whole Brock Purdy thing, to be perfectly honest, whether it is 50, even if it is 50, it's not going to be $50 million every year, and our cap isn't going to be totally blown up when we have to get rid of all of our good players. It's not like we're going to have to cut Warner and Kittle and Debo. And I mean, come on, man, pump the brakes on that. The salary cap goes up every season. You know what I mean? They don't. They're one of the best setup teams. What do they have, like $45-50 million rolled over for next year? It's not like if Brock Purdy gets $40 million next year that all of that goes away. That's not how salary caps work. That's not how contracts work. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of this discourse, to be perfectly honest, and I'm not saying that every fan is stupid and we're the only ones that are smart, but I think people need to start wrapping their head around the business of football and contracts and the way that the Niners do business, because a lot of this stuff is just shooting from the hip and emotional, and it does not match reality. And I do not understand for the life of me how so many people have the same conversation on Twitter over and over and over again. And then I've been called all kinds of names for pointing out the truth. And it's like, hey, that's not really how it works just because that's how you think it is. So I think fans need to take a step back and learn the business, because the Niners do contracts better, in my opinion, and not just because I'm a Niner fan, than anybody in the league. So, Brock Purdy's going to get paid. And whether it's 40, 50, 60, whatever it is, I promise you guys, Prague is not going to let the salary cap blow up, and we're going to be devoid of talent.
Exactly.
And Mike, you bring up a lot of good points, like the average annual value. Once Purdy, or I'm not even sure who the next, I should know, right? Like who the next quarterback in addition to Purdy could get paid this offseason. I'm not sure who it is. But if there is another one, let's say, the media or the agent's going to drop the number, right? It's going to be in media. So, Sports Center, it's going to sit for a couple days and people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe player X got $58 million a year or whatever. And then once you see the details come out, you realize it's a more reasonable contract, and all of them are inflated because of the back end number. Correct. It could be $53 million a year $51 million a year for Jalen Hurts, but that's because his last year might be $78 million. That's a phony year that he's never going to see until they renegotiate. So that's all completely fair. And it's even the media too. And I don't want to jump on the Sam Darnold thing, but real fast, Brian Baldinger, he of the multiple crooked fingers, was, online this week saying that he would flip Darnold for Purdy right now. And that Purdy at 24-25 is a descending player. And that quote, the Niners should call Minnesota to see what it would take to get Darnold. Now, Brian Baldinger, I know you're not listening, or I'm assuming you're not listening. Darnold's not under contract next year, buddy. If you're going to make a statement about maybe trading, just understand contracts, who's signed for what. Like the problem is, well, that was just maybe like a misstep or whatnot. But Mike, to your point of people need to be doing research, it's so hard when you deal with folks on social media, because one, they're not doing the research. Two, they're going to social media for the research. And three, they're probably going to social media into their own echo chambers to talk about the same stuff that's probably wrong from the get-go. So spotrack.com, overthecap.com, Jason Hurley on Twitter. I was asking him questions about Debo's contract earlier in the week because I wasn't sure about void years. There are ways to easily understand, but the media in general, like the narrative is so lazy that when you see $55 million a year for Trevor Lawrence, people think $55 million a year against their cap, 50, like That's not how it works. And Trevor Lawrence's contract is a perfect one the Niners could look at because Trent Baalke helped negotiate that in Jacksonville. He was in San Francisco, and Trevor Lawrence's cap hits don't get into the 30s until year 4.
Right.
And the advantage of extending Brock this year coming up is that's an extra year to spread out the hit instead of him playing on his 4th year deal, which you would never do anyway. So the math, and there's people out there saying there's no salary cap. It's not real. Well, people can finagle it, right? It's kind of a thing, but not really. And the math doesn't always equate. But I'm with you. Parag knows more about the cap than I'll ever know, or has forgotten more about the cap than I'll ever know. They'll figure it out. And they're in such a good spot with like $65 million in cap space before they maybe cut Hargrave or trade Debo or extend Kittle. Or they may have like $80 million in cap space at some point in the March or April before they redo Brock's deal. So they're in the demise of the Niners, and the breaking up of the band is so overblown. Will there be new pieces? Sure. Probably going to be 15 new faces on that team next year. But the core of the team, minus maybe 2 or 3 heads, are going to be the same. And as long as they stay healthy, there's no reason they shouldn't win 11 games next year. 4th place schedule, baby. Bring it on.
That's what I'm saying.
Schedule. Get those easy wins.
Bring us that bad schedule. I can't wait.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing there's this thing that really gets to me. Like, who in their right mind would tell somebody who's negotiating to get life-changing money to negotiate a team-friendly, like the Niners do team-friendly contracts, but essentially a lot of these fans think that Brock should go in there and just let the Niners choose whatever number they want at whatever low value and say, hey, almost like whatever you guys want to give me, I'm okay with. That's not how negotiations works. I could almost guarantee that his agent has a set number that they will not even negotiate if it's not past that set number. And I'm thinking the floor, like you said, the floor might be around 50 to 52 million a year. Listen, do I think Brock is an elite quarterback in the same breath of Mahomes and all those guys? No, of course not. No. But it's the going rate of an NFL starting quarterback. You can't go and buy him at Walmart. You can't go and buy him at Sam's Club. It's not like there's a place where you can go buy elite quarterbacks. We had 2 in our franchise. We might never have another one again. And this notion that Brock is like got to take less money to do what's best for the Niners, that's not how it works. Like you guys said, though, Parag Marathe is a magician with the cap. 49ers, as long as they have John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and Parag Marathe in the building, they will have a competitive roster with a chance to win every single year. Are they going to get to the Super Bowl every single year? No, nobody does, except for if you're the Chiefs because the rig is in. But man, I watch some of these people on Twitter and they speak with such like authority, like this is what Brock needs to do and how dare he ask for money and all this other stuff. Man, there's so many people who are so pompous out there. It's asinine because like just because Brock isn't one of those top upper echelon quarterbacks, it doesn't mean that he can't get paid or that he doesn't deserve to get paid. So I just hope it doesn't run into the regular season. I just hope it gets done before the end of the draft or a little bit after the draft, because if we have another situation like last year where that thing's running up against the start of the season, we're gonna have problems all over again. I hope they have learned their lesson about how to do these big contracts going forward.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike. To that point, not to be long-winded or anything, but every single player that's been paid has gotten an injury in the first 2 years of their contract. Yeah. Bosa, Ayuk, Debo. They've all been hurt. Trent Williams got an extension.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So at CMC, just got a little bit more money, and look what happened. He never recovered from that injury from last season. So fans need to understand that, and it's of my opinion, and some people don't want to hear this part, is a lot of times when players get paid, and I'm not just talking about Niner players, and I'm not even just talking about football. Once you get that big contract, man, You're making business decisions every time you step on that field or that court to make sure those
Yes, you
checks
are.
cash every week, in my personal opinion. And it's not, you can look at it every year where one of these guys got paid that same year, their season was not nearly as good as the season before that, whether it was due to injury or it was just due to lack of production. Kyle said recently that Debo didn't slow down. Okay, if Debo didn't slow down, then what's going on with Debo? Okay, we have a lot of injuries on the offensive line. Have teams potentially figured out our offense? Potentially, sure. That's logical. But guess what, man? You're being paid a lot of money for, no matter what that reason is, you're paid a lot of money to get that ball in your hands and to do some pretty special things damn near every time you touch it.
Yep.
And when you don't, yeah, the excuses sound lame. They sound redundant, but the Niners are one of the only teams in the league. If you look around the league, how many teams do you know have this many star players paid? I think the Niners. I'm willing to bet. I have not done the numbers, but I'm willing to bet that the Niners have the most contract extensions than any other team in the league, as far as paying star players. And the crazy part is these other teams like the Chiefs, who win with Travis Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, one of the most flagged offensive lines in the league, and then a bunch of also rans or a bunch of bargain basement receivers and running backs. I mean, we have guys paid at every level on both sides of the ball.
Yep.
Except for safety. Every level on this team has a high paid guy.
Now the Niners do well by their players. They reward their players. If you're a player coming into this league or you're a player in free agency, mainly players coming into this league who the Niners draft. If you play well for them, they are going to reward you.
Yeah,
You brought up Kyle Shanahan, and I wanted to kind of take the conversation into that direction now.
sure.
Mike, I've been watching you tweet, and like I said, you, me, and Al are kind of on the same wavelength with this Kyle Shanahan. I think people get the idea just because you're a fan of Kyle that you're okay with us losing Super Bowls and stuff. Like nobody's okay.
Oh
with
yeah,
that.
that's
Like who's okay with that? Nobody's okay with that.
nobody.
But there's this notion out there that you can just get rid of him and then bring in an unproven guy. I saw this is one of the best tweets I got. I tweeted a guy, I said, so you're going to bring in a guy who's got 2 years in Ben Johnson of some remarkable play calling to take over this franchise. He's got a 2-year snippet of success. And that's what you're going to go based on. Well, sometimes you have to take that move. You have to make that move and just go for it. And if it doesn't work out, well, that's the price of business. It's like, you can't do that with this roster. You can't play that kind of game with this roster with aging vets, vetted players that have been on this team a long time. These guys want to win now. And regardless if people don't want to hear it or not, Kyle Shanahan is still the best option to have this team win a Super Bowl. And I just, it's asinine. They come up with all these different coaches and like all these, unproven guys. I know Belichick was the name for a while that people were throwing around. I'm like, listen, Kyle needs to evolve. We all know that. He was asked about it in a press conference. He kind of addressed it, but kind of didn't. Kind of danced around it. But this whole notion that you could just go fire him and find somebody better out there, the pressure's on if you bring that guy in to win now. You can't bring him in and give him any type of grace period. The other thing is, none of these players that we have, if a new guy comes in, he has no allegiance to anybody on this roster. So essentially, if he wants to start, getting rid of guys, for whatever, maybe better draft pick, tank the team, whatever kind of method he wants to go by, there's nothing we can do about it. So it's like, be careful what you wish for. But I'll let Mike go first. Kind of give your opinion on the same topic.
The Kyle Shanahan discourse. Again, I get it, man. Like I said, I've been a fan for over 30 years, and I get wanting to win another Super Bowl. But just because I say that I want Kyle to be here doesn't mean that I am okay with the stale offense. It doesn't mean that I'm okay with all the injuries. It doesn't mean that I'm okay that it appears as if he only cares about the way he looks. It doesn't mean that I'm okay with the fact that we have terrible special teams and that our defense has been getting ran through all season. No, it doesn't mean any of that. It just means, like you said, if you get a new guy in here, it's going to take him at least a season to feel out how to be a head coach. He better hire some assistants that have been there before so he can lean on them, because rookie head coaches, I'm sorry, didn't Saleh just get fired? I know it wasn't necessarily his fault, but he just got fired. D'Amico Ryans is doing pretty good, but he's in the AFC. He's got to deal with Mahomes for the next decade. Have fun with that, bud. And then you got LaFleur in Green Bay. He's doing pretty good, but he's not setting the world on fire. The Niners have owned him for the last 5 years also. So I mean, it's trial by fire here, man. So yes, Kyle Shanahan has a lot to prove again. Yes, we want to win a Super Bowl. And yeah, fans are tired of injuries being the excuse and all of this stuff. And I get it. You got CMC, you got Debo, you got Ayuk, you got Bosa, you got all these names. That's what I'm saying. This team is so loaded that excuses can't exist. And I totally get it. I understand, guys. I promise. I'm on the same boat as you. But at the same time, emotionally firing this guy, he'll get picked up so fast your head would spin. And then you gotta pray Ben Johnson hires a good enough offensive and defensive coordinator, and hell, our special teams is god awful, And like you said, in my opinion, whoever comes in here, let's use Ben Johnson as an example, he would be under more pressure year one, and Kyle would in year 8, because fans want it now.
Yeah, he was brought in here for that exact reason.
Right. So you want to bring in a rookie? Okay, Bill Belichick isn't available, guys. He's coaching UNC, So without repeating myself over and over again, I understand. I want to win the Super Bowl just as badly as anybody else. But firing Kyle Shanahan, I'm just hoping Kyle changes. He doesn't have to change everything. It doesn't have to be wholesale changes. It doesn't have to be a dynamic reboot of the entire franchise. But he might need to bring in another mind. He might need to bring in an offensive coordinator, or just run some ideas off of other guys. And this idea that what's his name, Mike McDaniels was the reason why the Niners clicked on offense. We went to a Super Bowl without him. So.
And had one of the best offenses
without. And had one of the best offenses in the league. So, no offense, that's BS. So, do I think he needs another mind in the building to bounce things off of? Sure. We've done our best when we've had multiple offensive assistants helping him. When he's by himself, there's no, you look left, you look right, and it's just you. So you have nobody to tell you, hey, maybe try this or whatever. But I don't want to talk all night, but
great points, man.
I mean, we all, I mean, even beyond the media saying, "Oh, is Kyle's seat warm?" I mean, it's ice cold. You'll get frostbite if you sit on it. Like, he's not going anywhere. Although, the only two offensive-minded head coaches that I would take over him are Andy Reid and Sean McVay, and those are pipe dreams. But if McVay, say he retires after the season, goes into TV for a year, and then after a year or two, he wants to come back and the Niners still aren't getting over the hump, I would strongly consider it, right? Because he represents an evolution of Kyle's offense. And I think in some ways that's what the team needs. He's not averse to getting multiple in his formations, multiple in his personnel packages. I mean, when's the last time that the Niners had a viable number 2 tight end? It's been before Kyle's been there. They could go to a 2 running back committee or 3 running backs to save some wear and tear on McCaffrey, but Kyle's very stubborn with that. And he was very consistent with it, right? When Mason was in, no one was getting carries. When McCaffrey was in, no one was getting carries. When Garendo was in, no one else was getting carries until his hamstring went out on him. So Kyle, I think, just needs to be willing to adapt somewhat. And it's got to mean getting rid of Nick Sorensen in the offseason. Brian Schneider is definitely gone. I mean, if he brings him back, then I'll advocate for Kyle getting fired. Schneider should be gone. Sorensen should be gone. They should be bringing in someone that has a little bit more credibility or experience running the defense. And I keep throwing out, I would take Ulbrich from the Jets. I'd take Schwartz from the Browns, and I would take Zimmer from the Cowboys. And this whole, and Aaron and I have talked about it a lot, this whole dropping 4 rushing 4, dropping 7 thing will work against 22 quarterbacks in the league, but the top 10 QBs will figure it out and beat you in the second half and the fourth quarter. And that's especially what's happened against the NFC West foes. Pressure is not a bad thing. Nick Sorensen is averse to it. I don't understand why, but Kyle keeps saying like a cover 3, a wide 9, a drop 7. It gives me the most difficulty, or is the most difficult defense to game plan against. No, it's not, Kyle. It's what Jim Schwartz runs. It's what Minnesota runs. Those are pressure packages that give you all sorts of problems. And if you're such an offensive genius and it gives you problems, why wouldn't that type of defense give other offenses problems, especially when you're getting into the third and fourth quarter, when you're asking so much of your D-line that's not getting home, that's wearing down, and those other offenses, those opposing offenses are converting third downs, going on long drives, getting that touchdown or field goal late, and the defense can't get a stop. Beyond personnel changes, there's going to be, players are out of contract or expiring contracts. They may release someone like a Javon Hargrave, hopefully some fresh blood in the draft. I would just, and I've been, and nobody cares. No one listens to me, not even my wife or kids, like a little bit of pressure, right? Like, I don't think there's been a game where Sorensen's dialed up more blitzes than we can count on one hand. And not to say that would have won them any games that they lost, but if you have this many talented players on your roster and on your defense, you should be flexing a bit more, right? Like, you should be playing downhill, a little all gas, no brakes. And the same thing offensively. I do think he gets a little conservative at times, but he is not the major problem. I mean, I know people don't want to use injuries as an excuse this year, but this year is worse than the COVID year. Numerically, games missed, Pro Bowl type players that have taken meaningful snaps, a lot worse than the COVID year. And it sucks, but after the COVID year, they went back to the NFC Championship game. So if this team bounces back healthy, new strength and conditioning staff would be nice too. Kyle's not a huge issue, but who's getting a lot of the blame, right? Kyle and Brock. And those are any team that's struggling. And the GM, although John Lynch isn't going to really take that much heat, those are the two people in the organization that are going to take the most flack. I'm not surprised by it, but there are a multitude of reasons why this team is 6-9. It's not those two. They're at the mid or bottom of the list.
I agree.
Couple things that I've heard. One thing I heard, Jerry Rice and I think Steve Young both said that Kyle needs to evolve. Mm-hmm. Jerry Rice made a good point of talking about the offense being too congested and the formations being too tight.
Yeah. Everything
is really congested. And he said with Brock being a smaller guy, it makes it harder for a guy like Brock to see over things. And if you put the offense in a place where it's more of a wide open offense, where the field is spread, it makes it easier for a guy like him. Makes a ton of sense. But like the offensive line is something that they just don't feel. Miami has the same problem. My brother's a Dolphins fan, and I know this is a Dolphins-Niners preview. They don't value offensive line just like the 49ers. And both teams get their quarterbacks killed on a consistent basis because they don't prioritize offensive line. They prioritize playmakers. They prioritize the people that touch the ball. That's all they care about. Mm-hmm. There has to be a little bit of philosophical change going forward.
Now we're talking.
One thing I heard from Bosa that scares me is he thinks that Sorensen should stay.
I was going to say that.
And I'm like, no. But you think of Kyle and you think of John, and it might just happen. And we have to be ready for that. I don't want it to happen, but it could happen. Go ahead.
Can I add something to that? And not to necessarily support Nick Bosa, but if we're going to be fair, if you remember Salah's first season, not so much D'Amico's because D'Amico got to watch Salah. But if you remember Salah's first season, it was not very good. His second season was pretty good, but his first season was bad. And Nick said that it takes most guys that come into this system, especially with the wide 9. It takes them about a season to get everything down and get a rhythm. So he's saying like, hey, let's run this back with all these guys who have, a year's worth of knowledge in the system. I'm not opposed to that. It's the only problem is Nick, you better make sure that if that's what you want, that it works. You know what I mean? Because I'm all for keeping Sorensen, and I know that's nobody wants to hear that. I'm all for keeping Sorensen only if what he said happens. Hey, let's run this back because I know we can do this better. Cool. I mean, how many new guys do we have on the front line? All three of the starters were completely different. It was
Mhm.
Malik Collins. Um, it should have been Yetur Gross-Matu, but he got hurt, and Jordan Elliott. And then who did we end up starting? Leonard Floyd.
Mhm.
So the only person who was from last year was Bosa. So do I really want Sorensen? No. I would much rather, to Al's suggestion, have a guy who's done it before. Hell, I'd rather go call Rex Ryan and say, "What are you
Yeah.
doing on Sundays?"
Yep.
He's old, and hell, he blitzed his way to 2 straight AFC Championship games with Mr. Butt Fumble himself. So he's got to know at least a little bit about what he's doing. So I'm all for it, man. Hell, pull pull some random names out and start seeing what they're doing on Sundays, man. Because this, to be perfectly honest, having two DCs or having a babysitter because Kyle doesn't want to babysit this one, like he kind of alluded to, he did with Steve Wilkes.
Mm.
That ship has sailed, in my opinion.
What do you think of the
Like,
Sorensen talk when he said Floyd isn't a scheme fit? Like, why would you sign a guy who's not a scheme fit? That was
yeah,
the
they wanted him to be in that D Ford mold, and it just never manifested. He never became that edge presence that I thought he would be, that he's
so did
been in
I.
other places, and that he's been dynamic on the Rams and Buffalo. And it's just like, well, if he's dynamic there and not here, then is it him regressing, or are the Niners trying to put him in a spot that's not his thing? You know what I mean? So, like, I I've had this conversation with one of my best friends a million times. Is the wide nine really
Mhm.
Me
something
too.
that we need to continue using? I feel like a lot of times, especially in stopping the run,
Mhm.
the wide nine gets totally exposed, and then
Mhm.
it's like, oh well, the coach sucks. Well, does it?
Right.
Like if you know it's a running down, why are your forward linemen so far apart?
Yeah, their sets
It
are so
doesn't
wide.
make any sense to me on first and second down to not have all four guys inside the tackle's shoulders.
And
But
God
that's
forbid they
me.
have 5 defensive linemen ever on the field.
Right.
God forbid.
God forbid, right? Knowing they're going to run the ball, knowing your weakness is stopping the run. Oh, and I'm sorry. When Greenlaw's healthy, do we not have the best linebacking core on the
Mhm.
face of the earth? And
Just
we have
like that.
two, and now we have two thumpers in Huff and Mustafa, and a little bit more so in Brown at safety. So you're trying to tell me that you can't get off the bus and stop the run? Oh, by the way, now you have two of the best. Diamador Lenore has turned into one of the best man cover corners in the league. You just drafted the best college man cover corner in Renardo Green and Travarius Ward. I mean, he's had better seasons, but he's no bottom feeder when it comes to man coverage. So you mean to tell me that you got those three guys, those two guys at safety, and that front seven,
Mhm.
and you can't stop the run? I
Yeah,
just philosophically something has to change, and I'm not saying it all has to go, but stop doing the wide nine on first and second down, and maybe
100%.
start there.
Or just
Maybe
get rid of it
start.
completely because I think
Yeah.
it's overblown and I think it's overrated, to be honest with you.
Here's a question: do you think Kuseric? I was asking my friend this. We were kind of spitballing. I have a feeling that Kuseric is in charge of the front four, and the rest of the defense is on the defensive coordinator. I know that sounds kind of wild, but I feel like Kuseric has a little bit too much say in what those front four guys do. I can't prove it because I'm not an insider. I don't have knowledge, but it just feels like that front four is, with all those names, should not be this bad. But
Somebody brought
yeah,
up last year if Kasora calls the stunts on the D line to Wilkes, and Wilkes like, no, I call the stunts, I call all the blitzes, and he wasn't even really blitzing that much. So I mean, all the D linemen love Kasork, and he's gotten people paid. He's gotten Charles Omenihu paid.
Oh yeah.
He got Chase Young paid again, although he would have gotten paid again anyway, just because defensive ends there's just a dearth of them in the league. Listen, we'll give Nick Sorensen props for the last month. I mean, outside of the Buffalo game where they just got ran through,
Yes.
he has gotten better. Does his defense look as vanilla as it did week 1? Absolutely. Like, there are no even different flavors of vanilla. It's just vanilla bean every single week. There's no cookies and cream. There's no coffee. There's
no sourdough or cookie dough.
There's no French. There's nothing. It's just vanilla. And again, it'll work against 20 or 20, the bottom 20 quarterbacks.
Right.
15. But once you get into the playoffs and start playing better teams, they're going to pick it apart. The Leonard Floyd, talk that was interesting that Sorensen said that, but Floyd's going to wind up probably close to or over 10 sacks. He's at 8.5 now, right? Bosa's got 7. He missed 3 games. So he's going to give you Leonard Floyd numbers that he's given the past couple of years with Buffalo and the Rams. But I think next year it might be interesting, even though, I'm sure he's in phenomenal shape at 32, 33. He might have to be your third down DN specialist. Like Utor and Bosa might have to be your base ends. And then you can bring Floyd in. And if you draft somebody or another free agent, or God forbid, Drake Jackson decides to do anything, Sam O, Robert Beal's just a guy, he could be gone. They can maybe structure the D line a little bit differently to maybe get a little bit more pressure on third downs. And Mike, I forgot you said something really good. You said a lot of good things. You said something really good earlier, and I forget what it was. But in terms of the defense, at D line, they're only going to be losing Givens, right? They might be losing Greenlaw at linebacker, which would be a big loss. But if you pay either him or Huff, I'd pay Greenlaw instead of Hufanga.
Yeah.
Ward's on the way out, so you have to find a third quarterback, and then Hufanga's probably gone. So you're going to be missing Kevin Givens is a 4th, 5th tackle. That's not really a huge loss. So if they can bring Huff,
he's always hurt anyways.
Was that?
He's always hurt anyways.
Hurt quite a bit. I mean, so a lot of the lines coming back. They do need more pass rush. They need at least one more run stuffer at defensive tackle.
Bring back DJ Jones.
I'm okay with not double dipping with older players. Like, I don't want Quan Williams back. I don't want DJ. I don't want Robert Saleh. Like, Saleh's not coming back. Mike McDaniel's not coming back. They would think of that as like steps back in their career. I think the offense is going to be more interesting to see how that evolves. Jordan Mason, if they want to keep him, they're going to have to tender him with like a 2nd round tender, and that's going to cost them like $5 million. If McCaffrey's healthy, do I want to pay $5 million to someone who's not going to get the ball ever? Or maybe 20 carries for the year because Kyle won't give it to anyone other than McCaffrey. So you might get Eli Mitchell back. And I think Debo is the most fascinating player in the offseason because do they trade him? Does he get extended? There's the outside possibility that he does. Or do you let him play out that last year? Because to Mike's point earlier, contract year, ding, 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 ding. Are you going to get a 1,200-yard year out of Debo? Or even let's get crazy, 1,000? Maybe you get a big year out of Debo because he's looking to get the bag again, even if it's not San Fran paying him. Like, and again, what does that second tight end look like? What does the O-line look like? Because Banks is going to be gone and probably Brendel. I'm excited for the offseason just because I think a lot of I hate to call it dead weight, but the underperforming players or questionable players, I'm hoping they're gone and they get filled by either a draft pick or a free agent that could be better or cheaper or younger or faster or whatever it may be. Change isn't bad.
Safeties, I feel like we have a glut of similar players. I feel like Jair Brown, Mustafa, and Huff are all kind of in the same. I would love to see the Niners make a move for a center fielder like you talked about, Al. Someone back there who can cover.
Yeah.
They're great against the run and they're great against offenses that are compressed, but things get a little hairy when you get the safeties that we have in coverage because they seem to always be out of position, regardless of who's the defense coordinator. Tyshawn Gibson, man, he was such an afterthought signing a couple of years ago, and he was one of the best players that we had in our defense as far as like interceptions and just being in the right place at the right time. Like, we missed him a lot this year. I mean, Jair Brown was one of the biggest reasons why Buffalo kicked our ass in that game. Is he is just terrible in run fits, especially that effort that he did on that one play that they went up the sideline and scored. Oh my God. I didn't really get mad during that game because I kind of knew what was going to happen, but that was the one time where I flipped my lid. Just a shitty effort, just like putting an arm out, not really even trying, like just bad angles. consistently.
And
So
they
your
can get rid of
safety is
George.
they
They can
go
get rid
ahead.
of George Odom too. I'm sorry, I was gonna say like I know, and he's on IR, and I know he was brought in for special teams, but the special teams is shit anyway. How much worse is it going to be without him? Like,
Exactly.
get rid of him and bring in, whether it's a draft pick or another free agent, but someone that is actually a viable option to step in and start in case somebody gets hurt, because they didn't want him on the field at all. I mean, they elevated Gibson because they did not want to see George Odom on the field, and that's a problem when you're scared to play backups. Like, they're your backups for a reason because they're not as good as the starters. But when you don't even want to play your backup when a starter gets injured, then that kind of tells you the quality of the backup. And maybe in the offseason you look somewhere else. But I apologize, Aaron. You were
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. It's you guys are good. This is so easy. You guys all talk. And when people talk and I don't have when I don't have to do this, I've had people on in the past where it's like, oh my God, I'm not really good at talking all the time. I can do it in real life, but on here it's like, wow, it's like a point guard, man. I just assist and assist. I feel like not Jeff Hornacek, the other guy, the guy in Utah.
Stockton.
No, you guys are like Malone and Jeff Hornacek. Yeah. Couple rapid fire things we could talk about. We got about 15 minutes left. Let's see what we could do here. Stuff you want to see in the last couple of weeks of the season. I'll give my takes real quick. A couple things I want to see. I want to see more out of Jacob Cowing.
Yep.
I want to see more out of Ricky Parasol. And those, I mean, just two guys right there offensively that I think need to be force fed the ball in the next couple weeks. We got to see what we have, right? Like, if you're going to make a move on Debo and Debo's not going to be here, wouldn't you like to at least know that you have a viable option just in case he's not back? We're not even thinking about the fact that we're probably not going to get Brandon Ayuk till what, mid-season? And is he motivated? Is he going to come back? You know, is he going to train and come back like a lot of other players do? Because something about Ayuk was off this past offseason. When after he got signed, it was just something. I don't know if he was just checked out. Like Mike said, people get paid and all of a sudden they make business decisions. People make like Ayuk is this like, you know, elite receiver that's going to come back and change the dynamic of our offense. Like, I'm not exactly positive on that, or am I that excited? I would really love to see what these two young guys can do. I would really like to see what they can do. Can't think of really any other positions on the field because we've been so decimated by injury. Everybody's gotten a chance to play. If Ben Barch was available, I would love to see him at left guard because I want to see what he can do. But like these next couple games, essentially what I'm looking for is I just want to see young guys perform so that we can end the season on kind of a feel good, you know, thing. Go into free agency in the draft. Like you made a good point, Al. You said that free agency is not going to be like a big ticket, but maybe two medium ticket players. Maybe sign another. I don't know. Maybe sign a safety in free agency. Make a big splash at safety, and then maybe bring in, I don't know, a center or another defensive tackle, something like that, and then let the draft take care of the rest. It's going to be interesting these next couple weeks. In a way, it's kind of like stress free because we don't have to worry about us getting our heart broken in the playoffs because we're not going to be in the playoffs. Someone else is going to have to put up with that crap with the Chiefs. So I'm okay with that in a way. I know that's kind of weird and it's kind of loser mentality. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm looking at it.
No, I like just no big injuries that would you know dwell into next season, right? Just want to see that, and any of the young guys, like you said, like we talked about previously. Does any of us know what Ricky Pearsall is? Like, what is he? I mean, other than someone who got shot, unfortunately, right? And I know there's some folks want to give him a pass for the whole year, and I could totally understand that.
Kind of,
and he's gotten up to speed enough the last 6 weeks that you would like to see something more than one catch the last 4 games, like. And especially with Ayuk out, right? If Ayuk was still healthy and he was behind Ayuk, Debo, and Jennings, you can understand, right? The dude's buried on the depth chart. But then the conversation is, why the hell did you draft a receiver in the first round if he's not even going to see the field? Like, you can't win either way. But I would love to see them maybe. I'd rather force feed him the ball than Debo. Like, why not? Like, get your rookies up to speed. Cowing. I'm excited to see the running backs. Like, I mean, Patrick Taylor's slow as shit, but let's see what he does. Let's see what Keyshawn Vaughn does. Let's see what the kid from the Jets can do. Like they brought up Jalen Graham from the 53. If Greenlaw's out and they're subbing in, let's see what Winters and Graham can do if, you know, Greenlaw prices himself out. So I'm with you. Any of the young players, you know, I'll be counting blitzes on one hand, probably 3 fingers just to see if Sorensen's evolving at all. And And if, Kyle throws any screen passes, because I know that's crazy. And if Brock's going to do bombs away or take checkdowns, like there's stuff to look forward to the next 3 weeks, because once we get to past the Cardinal game, there's no more Niner football for 6 months. And that sucks. There's going to be playoff football, and that's all good. I'm sure we'll watch, but no more Niner football for 6 months. So I'm going to take in as much as I can these next 3 games and cross your fingers again, like the whole injury thing. Like, and I know, Aaron, you've talked about, like, do you sit Dre? Because does he get injured? I mean, Williams is done for the year because of his ankle. That's smart. Like, do they sit Bosa because the oblique? Whatever. Not my calls. But I'm excited to see players, offense or defense, that we haven't seen a lot of, just because it's their auditioning for next year. And if they're like if Israel Abanaconda or whatever his name is like a viable number 3 running back next year, cool. We get to see him play. But otherwise, like the outcomes of the game, the only game I want them to lose is the Lion game, because I don't want the Eagles to get any shot at a first round bye. They're low rent fans. I hate them. I hate everything about that organization. So I'll concede the Lion game, even though it's not conceding. They're going to trash San Francisco. But let them think, if they win them the Dolphin game and the Cardinal game, I don't care about the whole draft pick position. Whatever it is fine, because they'll screw up the first round pick anyway. And then we'll just go from there. Just like I'm just, listen, there's a game on tomorrow at 4:25 Eastern. I'm going to watch. That's it.
I mean, you guys pretty much said all of it. I mean, I want to see the young players. I want to see all the players behind the players that could potentially be leaving, like the Greenlaws. And, someone I saw, it says, don't forget about Bethune. Sadly, Bethune is on IR, so he can't play. But I'm a Florida State fan, and I watched that kid in college, and that kid's a heat-seeking missile. So I would really love to see him develop. Winters, if you go watch Winters' TCU tape, you would have thought we drafted the next Fred Warner also, and he hasn't looked like that. I'd love to see more of him. He's definitely had flashes. He's all over
another
the place.
Linebacker too that got hurt this year that I can't remember.
Robinson, yeah.
Yeah, Curtis Robinson. Yeah, true. Yeah, see, there's so many injured players. You're like, oh my God, I forgot we had that guy. You know what I mean? So there was some guy that was hurt. I was like, oh my God, I forgot that guy even existed. So, pretty much to your points, I just want to see the young players, especially on defense. I want to see Ronaldo Green, in my opinion, it should be the number 2 cornerback next year. If they're going to let Travarius Ward walk, which it looks like they will, which is kind of why they drafted Ronaldo Green. And Ronaldo Green has been as advertised. Has he been perfect? No, but I mean, the kid can cover. He's physical. So I would definitely like to see more of him, even in the slot. He's versatile, and the Niners don't do one-trick ponies, really. So you guys pretty much said it all.
They have a really good young secondary that people don't realize.
Oh, they do.
You think about it, like Malik Mustafa's pretty good. Diamondor Lenore, like you said, probably top corner in the NFL. Ronaldo Green, did he have a perfect season? No. Did he get hurt? Did he get touched up in Buffalo against Buffalo? Yeah. Some teams touched him up, but like Deion got touched up in his first year by Joe Montana in 1989. Montana was throwing touchdowns on Deion, so everybody has to go through it. No one's perfect. Yeah, I mean, I look at this team and they're not bereft of talent. They just got to get some pieces to replace old pieces. I would love, it sucks, man. Like wide receiver, we have like the slowest group of receivers in the NFL. We do not have any speed at receiver. And I feel like that's going to be an issue next year, unless they miraculously, get everybody to run a 4.340 in the offseason. I mean, I love Juwan Jennings, but he's slow as molasses. I think he's a better receiver than Brandon Ayuk right now in his career than Brandon Ayuk is. And Brandon Ayuk is a magnificent route runner. But Juwan Jennings is just so much more dependable and so much more engaged. Mentally,
like over 1,000 yards. I wonder what the odds were on that before the season. I mean, granted, the Ayuk injury help matters for him, but that wild. Yes, speed. But at least we know Chris Conley's not going to be on the. I mean, I'm assuming Chris Conley's not going to be on the roster next year.
It's like
maybe, another
like Dante Johnson. Is he going to find his way back on here?
Who'd you say?
Is he gonna be like Dante Johnson and find his way back onto the roster next year?
It's not Ronnie Bell.
And I mean, sadly, Juwan Jennings just put up almost 1,000, or could put up 1,000-yard season, and we might have to sit at the table with him and pay him some more money. So, yeah,
He just got paid in the off season, though.
I mean, but see, I don't think.
Or would they redo? Would you think they'd
renegotiate
again?
I'm spitballing here. I don't think so. What did he get? A 2-year deal?
I think so.
Yeah. So,
and he was happy as horse that he got it too. Like I've never seen a guy.
You might want to throw another year on that one too, real quick, while no one notices. In the off season, I don't necessarily think you make it a priority, but I mean the Niners have speed. They just don't have Tyreek Hill speed. But you know what I mean? Like Ricky Pearsall can run, Ayuk can run. I mean these guys. I mean George Kittle can run. I mean, yeah, we're not a track team, but our bread and butter is breaking tackles and yak, and we just didn't do any of that this year. So it all looks like our receivers are catching the ball and getting totally destroyed. So I'm not ready to say we don't have speed. It's just, I mean, if we want to bring up Ricky Pearsall and why he's disappeared all season, it was quiet as kept to people who weren't paying attention, but to the people who were, he wasn't even separating in practice.
Mm-hmm.
There was early reports that he was getting totally blanketed in practice. So if he can go and and hone his route running skills, maybe go hire Chad Johnson or something. I don't know. Do they have wide receiver coaches out there? Oh hell, just go follow Brandon Ayuk. He's the best route runner in the team. And just get find that skill, because in this league, it doesn't matter how good your hands are, how tall you are, how fast you are. If you can't separate to make yourself available to the quarterback, you are totally irrelevant.
Well, and that's going back to what you said earlier, Mike, with the whole like the philosophical change. Like, does Kyle need to reinvent himself? It's just so amazing how the offense evolved into a drop back passing offense, yet they were missing McCaffrey and Ayuk and Debo at times and Jennings for a couple of games. You would think that when you're missing a few of your super dynamic skill pieces, you wouldn't be bombing the ball downfield to receivers that can't separate. That it would be more of a yak type of thing, more of a run and catch, horizontal passing game, make them defend every blade of grass. Now, maybe defenses are sitting on that and Brock was taking it. There's a lot that goes into me just making a statement like that, but I always found it weird how they're missing so many pieces and the solve was let's throw downfield more. Like, you didn't throw downfield when you had all your pieces.
Brock needs to go back to what got him to the dance. I think Brock needs to. The one thing about Brock I would like to see going into next season is just start taking what the defense gives you, man.
Absolutely.
That throw, and I know there was pass interference on that throw, and they talked about it. Juwan Jennings got held at the top of that route that he ended up throwing the interception for, but the check down was right in front of him, dude. Now, I know he got plastered on that play, so he maybe didn't see it, but Brock regressed? Yeah. Is it beyond repair? No, I don't think so. I think Brock, if he get another healthy offseason, maybe put a little bit more weight on, maybe another training camp and offseason with Pearsall and Cowling. Who knows? Maybe they come back and they're a different group next year.
But there's a lot of context to just simply saying Brock regressed. I mean, the entire team, the offensive line hasn't been playing well. Yes, okay, PFF graded McKivitz and some of these guys a little higher than what we're visually seeing, and has told us that the offensive line is better than we're saying. But I mean, Brock regressed. Okay, why? Okay, your offensive line's not. You lost your best running back, your second best running back, your third best running back, your star wide receiver who just got paid. The previous one who just got paid isn't performing well. In Debo, Juwan Jennings had to be the literal star of the offense for all of the games that he was available for, And George Kittle has quietly had the best season since he broke the tight end yardage record, which has already been broken since then. And what else? And potentially Brock said that his shoulder is still, whether you believe that or not, whether he's still recovering from his shoulder being out of whack. So just simply laying out the statement that Brock has regressed. Okay, yeah, statistically speaking, in a very quick analysis, that's true. But why? This is the ultimate team sport, guys.
No, I agree with you on that. When I say he regressed, there's definitely things behind it.
Sure.
It's not just him playing bad and him taking chances that he shouldn't. The whole team has regressed. The defense regressed.
Exactly.
The perception, the perception that's out there that Brock's a check down merchant is never going to be shaken, if that's the right tense. You know, people that think that are just going to always think that. They're going to just think, oh, he just dumps it off. But the stats are there that last year and this year is not the case with this whole air yards per completions, etc. However, if he had a little bit more of that check down in his game, it could keep the Niners ahead of the sticks, moving the stick. He'll never be Alex Smith. Alex Smith was captain check down wherever he was. Kansas City, San Francisco, Washington, captain check down. Brock, I think, could use a little bit more of that in his game to distribute the ball, get it to his playmakers, and not force things. He hasn't forced a ton this year. The forces have been extremely untimely. The Rams game, the fourth quarter, and the Chief game when they were down 18 or whatever it was, and he threw that pick in the end zone. It could have made it a one-score game, even if they just kicked the field goal. He does tend to force stuff, and maybe he's feeling the pressure with people being out. I don't know, but there is nothing wrong with a little dump off to Mason or Garendo or McCaffrey, and they take it for 10 or 15 yards, dumping it off to Kittle. It doesn't, the drop back passing game, like we know Brock's not going to throw it 60 yards on a rope, on a dime, and that's okay. But if this offense was more of the 2022, 2023 play calling, you know, maybe they're not 6-9, maybe they're 7-8 or 8-7, whatever, if I'm doing the math correctly of wins and losses. I'm not a fan of the drop back game when you're missing this many pieces. But we'll see what Kyle evolves this into, and we'll see what the pieces are on the offense. Kyle did come out to say, and he made sense, right? You draw up an offense based on your skill position play or based on who you have to maximize their talents. I can't really say what I've seen this year has maximized anybody's talents because look at the results, right? Maybe Jordan Mason. And then once McCaffrey came back in, you're gone. So we'll see how it looks next year. These next 3 weeks don't mean anything. Brock can throw 3 picks a game or throw 3 touchdowns a game. Whatever folks' opinions of Brock Purdy are, it's going to remain that way until he gets paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
I want to say this went better than I thought it was going to go, based on the times that
what does that mean?
had to. No, I've never. 3 of us have never been together.
Okay.
I've only known Mike on Twitter, and Mike, you are a joy to talk to. You know your shit. Al is always fun to talk to. When we're missing James today, he's hanging out with the wife. But yeah, man, this was quite enjoyable. I wish we had more to talk about as far as like what's going on with the team, but you played the cards you're dealt, so to speak. I would assume you and Al, I want to do an end of the year show, and then kind of wait maybe until I think like free agency, and then when the draft hits, I might do pop up here and there.
Sure.
Take a little content break because there's really nothing to talk to. And then, of course, after that, take a break till training camp. I'm not Grant. I don't get enough views or make enough money on this to be on here that much. Like I could make a 10-minute video and I'll get 25 views. That guy gets like 20,000. So he has to be online every day. So, but I had fun. Mike, thanks for coming on. I hope me and you can do this again going forward.
Yeah, man. I'm down for an end of the year show, free agency. I love talking ball, so anytime that it makes sense and that it's relevant and fun, I'm down, man.
Appreciate it. Awesome. And Al, thanks as always. We'll probably be doing something on Monday too, as well after the game.
Yeah, maybe? No, absolutely. Yeah, however that However that atrocity of a game turns out, that's totally fine.
This was fun. That was great. All right. Have a nice day.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Take care. We'll see you guys in the future at some point. Take care.
Appreciate you guys, man.
All right. Good stuff.
Excited
Mike.
to
Thanks
do
a
it
lot, Aaron.
again.
Take
Have a
care,
good
guys.
one.